Keep it down south. Actually, let's go even further down south, matter of fact. Let's take a trip down to Tallahassee, Florida for a critical ACC matchup that we have on our hands. And when this season first started, I'm sure there was quite a few people that did not peg this game as being a potential top 25 matchup down the line. But you know what? Teams surprise, teams disappoint. And yet here we are, halfway through the season. Duke is 5-1. There's also a scenario where Duke wins out, by the way, wins the ACC, possibly makes it to the college football playoff. That scenario is still in play, kids. Imagine that scenario. Duke in the college football playoff. Oh, boy. Boy, that would be a stir on Twitter. But they got to go on the road, though. Duke's got to go on the road against number 4 Florida State. Now, Florida State has been perfect thus far. They have their struggles at times. It has been perfect for Florida State. We've seen them stumble a little bit against Boston College. We've seen them against Clemson. They were in a fight for their lives against a Clemson team who's probably in the midst of having a little bit of a down season themselves, but it seems like they're picking it up the last couple of weeks. Florida State coming off of a 20-point win against Virginia Tech, and then now a 38-point win against Syracuse. So, big one also containing college football playoff implications. Florida State winning this game, what it would mean for them in the college football playoff picture is that Florida State gets another top 25 win on their resume as long as Duke continues to play at a high level at the rest of the season. And for Duke, at the college football playoff level, I mean, if they lose this game, they're out, which is longer, oddly enough, than what many people thought Duke was going to make it to. But if Duke loses this game, they are going to be out. In addition, we technically have a three-way tie at the top of the ACC right now. So Florida State is 4-0 in conference play. Duke has also not lost yet in conference play as well. And if Duke wins this game, they move up into the top 2, and they would get the inside track as well in terms of making it into the ACC championship. The ACC this year has gotten rid of divisions. As such, doesn't matter what division you're in. So you have the 2 best records in the ACC. We'll see you in Charlotte, North Carolina for that neutral side conference championship game. Florida State, though, could have a real opportunity to also cement themselves a little bit more in that ACC championship race. Getting to 5-0 in conference play puts themselves in a really good position. I mean, a top-tier position to make it to the ACC championship in Charlotte, North Carolina, because Florida State still has one more. Actually, they have a couple more non-conference games left. One is a FCS opponent against North Alabama. We don't know a lot about North Alabama, that's for sure. And then they also have Florida. Florida has quietly been a very good team down there in the Sunshine State as well. Could be a very intriguing matchup towards the end of the season, too. But Florida State historically has they've been rolling. Actually. They have won 12 in a row. They currently have the 3rd longest active streak in America. And they have also scored 30 points in each of those 12 games as well. And that's the 2nd longest 30-point streak in ACC history. So how does Duke pull off this upset? I want to talk in terms of with the spread being a little bit higher, with Florida State being listed as a 2-touchdown favorite in that 7:30 kickoff, which does happen to be on ABC as well. Well, a nice little spread of wealth in terms of what stations are holding which top 25 game, right? With the spread being a little bit higher, talking about in that 2-touchdown range, I'm going to be talking more so in terms of how Duke can pull off this upset. And it comes down to 2 things, really, for the Duke Blue Devils. First, they have to contain Florida State's offense. We've talked to that winning streak that Florida State has, when they get the 30 points in the last 12 games, they have been able to win all 12 games. So history tells me if you're going to beat this Florida State squad, you're going to want to contain them to the low to mid 50 or the mid 20s, in that 21 to 24 range. Going to have to keep Florida State in there. Going to be a tall task, though. Florida State has a lethal duo of wide receivers, Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, experienced starters. They'll have but thankfully they do have some experienced starters. They have Al Blades Jr. and Porter Wilson, very experienced starters. They combine for 42 tackles this season. So they're very talented corners. One of the better corner duos in the entirety of the ACC. The problem is Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. Those guys are him. Coleman has 29 receptions for 418 and 7 touchdowns. Wilson, and this is Johnny Wilson, I should say, who even is coming after missing a game, he still has 350 for 2 scores. So this is a very good receiver combination. Those corners are going to have to come and play. And it might be where you got to get safeties involved. You might have to do double teams against one or both, depending on what kind of situation that you're looking at. You're also possibly looking at getting a spy for Jordan Travis. And that's another thing too. Jordan Travis is the heart and soul, not of his offense, but I think of Mike Norvell's team. When you think of Florida State in 2023, you think of Jordan Travis. He's been arguably the most integral part of rebuilding the brand of Florida State football. And he's lived up to those expectations this year. He has 17 total touchdowns, and he also has done a spectacular job of taking care of the ball. He's only thrown 1 interception all year long in 6 games. And you'll also have an offensive line that's intact too. Just for the second time this year, Bless Harris, he was the day 1 starter at left tackle. He's missed some games, but he is expected to be back for this Duke matchup. That is a big return for Florida State, having that kind of experience on the offensive line coming back. They'll have their original combo that they had in game number 1 when they took on LSU and sent that message early on in the college football season when they won convincingly against LSU. And last but not least, Riley Leonard. What is going on with Riley Leonard? This is a guy that 3 weeks ago, Riley Leonard did end up spraining his right ankle in the loss to Notre Dame, a gut-wrenching loss for the Duke Blue Devils, their only loss, not to mention. And since then, they've had the bye, but we did not see him in the North Carolina State game. So 2 questions here. 2 questions in particular. One, do they get Riley Leonard back? And then 2, if Riley Leonard is back in the starting lineup for the Duke Blue Devils, is he going to be at 100%, or is he going to be more of those? He's going to be able to play, but he's at that 60 to 70% per se. Coach Mike Elko has commented on the Blue Devils quarterback, saying that they won't put Leonard at risk if he doesn't feel that he's ready. But he did add that, quote, there is a chance we're able to get him back healthy and be able to be playing at the level he's capable of playing at. And Leonard has thrown for 912 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. He's been a little bit more effective on the ground, 326 and 4 scores. I think if Duke has any sort of shot of winning this game, I think Riley Leonard does have to play at a tremendously high level, because we know that this Florida State team can score. And while the Duke Blue Devil defense has been one of the more menacing and frankly underrated defenses in the entirety of the ACC, You can't rely on just your defense. You need a complete effort, I feel, if you're going to take down this Florida State team. And we talked about how best case Duke needs to hold Florida State to like 21-24. Duke has to score at least 30 in order to win this game. It's not going to be like the North Carolina State game where they're going to be able to just scrape by with 24 of a backup quarterback, or the Clemson game, unless there's a bunch of turnovers that end up happening. So, couple of notes, just random fun facts about this game before I dive into who I think is going to win. So this primetime matchup marks just the third time these programs have met when they've both been nationally ranked. And this dates back, this is the first of such matchups since 2013. So it's been about a decade since we've seen this kind of situation. The 5-1 start that Duke does have, that's the first since 2018. They actually have they're in the top half of the ACC with both offense and defense. Their offense in particular has scored 31 points a game. So Duke is capable of putting up 30 plus against Florida State. The question is, do they? I don't think they do without Riley Leonard, but if they do, they have a shot. But here's the thing, though. I think that even if Riley Leonard does end up playing in this game, which I think he does, I don't think he's going to be at 100%. And because I don't believe that Riley Leonard is going to be 100% in this game, I don't think Duke just doesn't have enough firepower, in my opinion, in order to keep up with Florida State. Now, they're going to be scrappy, they're going to be competitive, but this is probably going to be one of those games where Florida State starts to pull away in the second half and doesn't look back. So, with that said, I'm going to side with Florida State. The model has Florida State covering against Duke. I am going to agree with the model. I think that Florida State covers, but it's going to be one of those games where the game itself is closer than what the score actually says at the end of the game.